Welcome back, everybody. Let's begin. Our first lesson for today is going to be how to make HTML pages. These are the pages, or these are the pages that will be served to you whenever you go to your favorite website. So anytime you pull up a website, let's say, I don't know, Amazon.com or something. Let's see now. Oh, I got Airbnb over here already up. Never mind. Let's say you go to Amazon.com or Airbnb or Facebook or any of those websites. I mentioned this in the previous video. If you just right-click anywhere on the page, if you just right-click anywhere on the page and click Inspect or View Page Source, right here, you will see that this page actually is written in HTML and a lot of JavaScript thrown in for good measure. Don't worry about the JavaScript part. I will tell you what all that is all about. But for now, all these funny tags that you over here, all this funny, all the funny things that you see on the screen, they're all generated with HTML. So that's what we're going to learn today. So here we go. For our little lesson over here, I'm going to start off by creating a folder on my desktop. This is just to make life easier for us so we can actually see where the files are. So go ahead and click create a folder on your desktop, and let's call this HTML CSS. So I'm just going to call it HTML CSS, and we're going to stuff all the files that we write in there. Okay, so we're going to put it in there. Go ahead and open up your Visual Studio Code that I had you download in the previous video. If you're using something else, then go ahead and use it. But I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Visual Studio Code, and the first thing I want to do is go ahead and get to that folder that we just created, the one called HTML CSS, on our desktop, and I'm going to use that as our working folder right here. So there you go. It's now opened the folder. Let's go ahead and now create our first file. So for our first file, I'm just going to go to HTML CSS. That's the name of our folder right there. I'm going to create a file in there. And this file, I am going to call it basics.html. Okay, so the file extension is very important. That's how the browser knows, oh, okay, this is a HTML file. I'll need to read it as such. Okay, so go ahead and call it basics.html, and later on we'll just get fancy with the names so you can actually do things with it. Okay, this is what the basic HTML page looks like. First thing, put an exclamation mark right there and just specify doc type is HTML. That, ladies and gentlemen, just that one line alone basically tells the browser that this is a HTML5 document. Simple as that. Now this is the basic outline for a HTML document. All HTML documents basically are a series of tags or elements. So what is a tag? This is a tag right here. So a tag basically is a pair of these funny little bracket things, for lack of a better term. Sorry. What did I put an exclamation mark there? I meant to do a slash. Okay, so tags generally come in pairs. If you open a tag, then you must close a tag. Now this is the first tag I'm going to tell you about. Now, you might hear me say tag, you might hear me say element. Just know that those terms are interchangeable in this case. Okay, this is what a HTML document looks like. It's essentially a document that has a HTML root tag or element. And inside the HTML element, that's the opening, that's the closing. The opening and closing are the same, except that the closing has a slash in front of it. That's it. And a HTML document basically is split into two parts. A head. If you open up the head, make sure to close the head. And a body. Now, it does not matter whether you put it on a new line or in the same line. It's entirely up to you. I'm putting it this way so it's easier to read. Okay? So, basically, a HTML document is split up into two parts. A head and a body. Whatever you put inside the head, let's say, for example, inside the head, I put another tag. Here's the first thing that here's another tag you're going to learn about. The title tag. Now, the title tag basically gives your page a title. like for example, I'm going to say that the title tag is my first page. So whatever the contents of the title, you just put it in between the opening and the closing tag. Now make sure you nest the tags very carefully, okay? So because if let's say you open the head over here, right, and you want to put a title inside the head, make sure you close the head after the title. Very important. So the sequence is important. And let's go ahead and save this. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. There you go. That's our page. We only have a head section, and inside the head section we have a title. Let's take a look at this page. So let's go back out to our desktop over here. Inside our desktop, there's a folder that we created just now. Inside there, you'll see there's a basics.html. You can right click and open it with any of the browsers that you have. For example, if you have Firefox or Chrome or IE, you can actually go ahead and try it over there. By default, mine is set to open with Chrome, so I'm just going to just open it with Chrome for right now. And this is what the page looks like. Tiki, there's nothing there. I know. Where's the title? There's your title right there on the title bar. Right there. Okay, so here's the first here's one of the first lessons right here. Anything that you put inside the head of the document basically is information about the page. It will not be displayed. If you want something to display on your page, you have to use the body tag. So the body tag is the one that's used for putting content of the page. For example, let's say for example I want to say, there's a tradition amongst programmers that the first program that you ever write in any new language is the Hello World program. I am a traditionalist. Tradition has been preserved. So I'm going to save this file right here, and all I've done is I put the words Hello World inside the body. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to go back to my browser over here, and I'm going to refresh this page. Ta-da! There you go. That's Hello World right there. Oh, that was easy, Tiki. Yeah, I know. It's not very difficult. So HTML is essentially whenever you want to format something, or like for example, if you want to make this like a header, you just have to know which tag to use. Like for example, I'm going to use the H1 tag over here. So if I open a H1 tag, make sure I close the H1 tag right there, save it, and I'm going to refresh it, and there you go. There's a heading for my page. Pretty simple, huh? Okay, and if I want to put some words after the H1, like for example, you know, this is my page. Welcome. Or something like that. Oh, sounds like rain. And if I refresh it, ta-da! Right there. Okay, so there you go. So you now know what a tag is. You also know what a general outline of a HTML document looks like. So again, you start with the HTML tags, and by the way, these tag names actually have meaning, so you can't just change them to whatever you want. If you want to get fancy, we'll get custom later on, but for now, these tags actually have meaning. So like for example, the header tag H1, as you saw, if I envelop anything inside the H1 tags, the text that's displayed inside here is large. You might be thinking, Tiki, how many levels of headers do we have? Well, you got H1 all the way through H6. Go ahead and experiment it. Do a H2, a H3, H4, H5, and finally a H6, and you'll notice something. The higher the number, the smaller the text gets. Like for example, this is more likely some text for a footer. Ta-da! Okay, so this is what it looks like. So save the page, and there you go. See that? See how small that is? So that's what a H6 looks like. So a H1 is larger than a H2, and a H2 is larger than a H3, so on and so forth. Okay, so now that you have a general idea of what a tag looks like, I'm now going to throw you a loop right here. A tag can also have no closing. For example, there are some tags, which I will tell you about later on, such as the image tag, And image tags don't have a closing tag. You don't do this. Okay? You don't do this. You don't close an image tag. So in that case, how do you use it, Tiki? Well, with tags like this, empty tags that don't have a content, what you want to do is close them like this. Yeah. So basically they don't have a closing tag, so you put a slash at the end of it. Okay, so there are two types of tags. You have tags that have pairs, and you have a tag that basically just is an empty tag. It has no content inside of it. Then what do I use it? How do I use it? Well, here's how you use it. An image tag, essentially, in order for you to use an image tag, we're going to basically need something called attributes or properties. Now, attributes basically are things like this. Whenever you want to put an attribute inside a tag, you simply put a space after the word, after the tag name, and you specify a attribute for it. Like, for example, image tags have a source attribute. Now, the source attribute, basically, the syntax for an attribute is the name of the attribute equals, and then the value for an attribute. Okay, so let's go for example over here. Let's say I want to put an image right here. After the H6, I just want to put an image right here just before my text. So let's go ahead and put an image inside the folder, yeah? Let's see now. Where do we have some images? I'm going to take just a simple image over here. And, oh, I'm always a fan of Lego. I'm going to copy that into our desktop folder over here. And here's our desktop folder, and I'm going to create a new folder in here. Do we actually have to create a new folder, Tiki? No. But as good programmers, what we want to do is always segregate our information. So I'm going to create a folder right here just specifically for our images. So I'm going to put that Lego, and I'm just going to shorten the name because if it's too long, you have to type the whole name in, and I'm just... Nah, we don't want to do that. Okay, so the name of the image is minifig.jpg, and minifig.jpg here is inside the images folder. So let's go ahead and add this. So this page right here, basics.html, is inside the main folder, correct? So the image that I'm trying to display over here is inside the images folder, which is a subfolder from this folder right here. So I say images/minifig.jpg. So I just have to specify the location of the image. And there you go. If I save it, this is what the page looks like. I'm going to refresh this. Ta-da! And there's Emmett. Cool, huh? Okay, so let's say I want to put more than one attribute. Here this image is way too large. It's just covering almost like, what, 60% of the screen right there. So I want to make it a little bit smaller. Well, the image tag, all tags can actually have multiple attributes. Like, for example, the image tag actually has another attribute called height. H-E-I-G-H-T, yeah, correct. And let's say I want to specify that the height of this image is going to be constrained to 100 pixels. So I'll just say height is 100 pixels. And just by doing that, watch this. Now Emmett is 100 pixels tall. There you go. Pretty decent, right? Now here's something that you might have noticed. The image is right there, and this text is right after it. How did that happen? If you take a look at the source code, the image is on its own line, and the text is down below. Here's the thing that you should know about HTML. HTML just basically renders everything as though it's one line. Like, essentially, if I were to write it out, it looks like this. And that's what HTML actually does. It basically just renders it just as though it's written in one line. But Tiki, how come the H1s over just now, the H1 and the H6 just started on their own lines? Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you about this later on during the CSS, but certain elements are rendered as block, which means everything that they render, everything that's inside that content will start on a new line. That's what you call a block display. And Others basically have an inline display. Images and text and things like that are all inline. So if you wanted it to start on a new line, okay, the rain's really gonna come down now. I love the rain actually. Okay, so if you wanted to start this on a new line, you would need to tell it to start on a new line. For example, I would need to say line break. There you go. And just by doing that, I'm going to save this. And by the way, I'm pressing Control S to save it. You can also go to File and Save over here. Same thing. It's the same thing. Okay, so I'm going to save the file. Go back to my web page over here. I'm going to refresh it. And notice it is now on the new line. The text is now on the new line. So there you go. Now here's something else you might want to do. Like for example, let's say I want to put a bunch of spaces over here. Again, HTML doesn't care how many spaces you have. It just counts one space, like in between the words over here there's a space. But if you have more than one space, it ignores them. This is the effect. Hey Tiki, there's nothing changed. Yeah, I know, it's still one space in front, right? There you go. So there's something that you need to know about HTML as well. It does not care how many spaces beyond one that you put inside your page. So if you wanted to add some more spaces, like right here after just before the welcome word, you have to use something called entities. Now here's the general syntax for entities. Entities basically start with an ampersand symbol and they end with a semicolon, and everything that you have in between is essentially your codes, your entity codes. Like for example, if I want to put a space over there, I say non-breaking space. Oops, sorry. I meant to put NBSP. So non-breaking space. If I save that, hold on a second, I'm just going to repeat this a few times. So I'm going to copy that, Control C, and then I'm going to paste a few spaces. Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V, Control V. And I'm going to save that. And here's the effect. This is what it was just now. I'm going to refresh the page and ta-da! Notice there's more space over here. So yes, you actually have to tell the browser everything that you want to have done. So if you want to start a new line, you use a breaking space. If you want to start, if you want to put spaces in between, you have to use entities. So what have we learned so far? You've just learned about the general syntax for HTML. HTML is basically started with a HTML tag. That's the root tag. And HTML documents have two parts, a head and a body. Don't worry about the head so far. I've only shown you how to put in a title. What other stuff can you put inside the head? I will come to that in more detail later on. But if you want to put something on the page itself, to be displayed on the page itself, you use the body. And inside the body, you've just learned that you can put anything, so long as you know what the name of the tags are, like H1, H6, images. And you now know that image tags also have attributes. Well, actually, all tags, I should say. All tags have attributes. Like, for example, the H1 over here. Now, I haven't told you what this means yet, but you can put attributes on any tag, so long as you know what the attributes are. Like, for example, H1, if I want to change the color to red, for example, I can just do that. That's CSS, by the way, which I will be telling you more about in the next video. So, just by doing something like that, I get, ta-da, the H1 to display in red. So you now know about tags, both the paired up kind of tags and also the single tags or the empty tags. You also now know what an attribute is. You now know also what an entity is. And don't worry, there are more entities. I will be coming through with them later on. This is just to give you the basics of how a document looks like, right? And you also now know that HTML documents essentially will render as though it's all in one line. So you have to be specific in what instructions you give it. And that's it. That's it for our first lesson. Congratulations, you survived. Now, here's a little reference for you. if you want to know more about tags and things like that, here's a website I would encourage you to bookmark. The name of the site is www.w3schools.com. This is a wonderful site where you have many references for lots of things, like for CSS, for JavaScript. So if you forget what I tell you, or if you forget something I showed you, you can always refer to this site, or just replay this video. And with that, that's it for this recording. I will see you in the next video. Next up, CSS. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe. Also, check out the links below. And if you'd like me to cover something else, please leave a comment down below.